Thank you so much for joining us today for this important and timely discussion regarding Morocco, Western Sahara, the UN, and U.S. policy. And I'm pleased to welcome and give the floor to a South Florida colleague and one of the co-chairs of the Congressional Morocco Caucus, Carlos Curbelo, who has, as we knew, another pending engagement. So, Carlos, we will begin with you, Congressman.
Madam Chairman, thank you. My colleague, Mr. Diaz-Balart, thank you very much. And to our friends and guests, thank you for being here on this day. Madam Chairman, thank you for bringing us together. Morocco is such a critical ally to the United States. The relationship is long. It has been very healthy for both the United States and Morocco, and we're obviously very concerned with recent developments from the United Nations. I personally believe that the United Nations is no longer an honest broker in the conflict, and that it is critical for our country, for the United States to stand strong and firm in support of Morocco in the face of this United Nations aggression. So I'm very grateful to you. As you stated, I had a previous commitment, but when I learned of this meeting, I wanted to come at least for a few minutes to support your work and to support our very dear friends. So thank you.
No, we thank you very much for taking time to come all the way back, say a few words, and I know you've got to get back to where you were. Thank you so much, Congressman Curbelo. And I thank my other good friend from South Florida, Mario Diaz-Balart, for joining us, and I'll turn to him in just a few minutes. Also, we have another South Florida colleague, Ted Deutsch, who's co-hosting this event with me, and he will be here shortly. But I'm so pleased that he's not literally from South Florida. He's from Jersey. But we know that Jersey is just a suburb of South Florida. Or maybe it's the other way around. I haven't quite figured out which came first. So Congressman Diaz-Balart and Congressman Sears, I don't want to mess up your schedule. So if you have other commitment, you have time, and Congressman Sears? Okay, well, thank you. I'm just going to make some brief remarks. And when Congressman Deutsch comes, we will, if you allow me, interrupt your testimony and hear from him as well. But as Congressman Curbelo pointed out, the U.S. and Morocco have had a long and strategic relationship for so very long. Morocco was the first nation to formally recognize the newly formed United States of America in 1777, something older than I am, not too easy to find. We signed a landmark free trade agreement in 2004, establishing the U.S.-Morocco Strategic Dialogue, and we have a series of bilateral agreements to reinforce and strengthen our bond of friendship and our cooperation in areas of shared economic and security interests. What a good ally Morocco is. And it has been longstanding and bipartisan U.S. policy to support a negotiated political solution between the Polisario and Morocco based on autonomy for the Western Sahara under Moroccan sovereignty. Bipartisan and longstanding. However, in recent months, as all of us know, we have witnessed an alarming shift at the UN with regard to the UN mission in Western Sahara. In March, Secretary General Ban Ki-moon made some outrageous comments misrepresenting Morocco's administration of the Western Sahara. The Secretary General's indiscreet comments call into question the neutrality of the United Nations and its ability to facilitate what we want, a negotiated solution. The timing of this statement was somewhat suspicious, as it came just before the UN Security Council will hear his report on the Western Sahara issue and consider the renewal of the UN mission mandate for another year. That's why it's so vital that the United States reaffirm our position in support of Morocco and work with our ally to draft a clean resolution that will bring this crisis to a close. Morocco has been one of the few bright spots in that area of stability, of reform, of progress in North Africa, and we want to see that continue. It's in our best national security interest to see this continue. We want to work with Morocco to seek solutions that ensure the stability of the region and the prosperity of its people. So today we're going to hear from our distinguished panelists, but before I introduce our distinguished guests, I want to turn it over to Congressman Mario Diaz-Balart and Congressman Albi Osiris for their opening remarks, and I thank them for joining us today.
Madam Chairwoman, thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I will be brief. I think you have expressed what I think all of us feel. I just want to add that the statements made by the Secretary General were not only counterproductive and offensive, they were just untruthful. I think all of us understand that those comments were highly counterproductive and frankly offensive. I've had multiple conversations, by the way, even today, with the administration regarding the situation that we're dealing with. And I think the damage that the Secretary General has caused is frankly hard to minimize. I want to, again, just join your words about when you look at Morocco, it is a model of stability, of a model of progress, of that others should emulate and try to copy. The relationship between the United States and Morocco is key, has always been key, continues to be key, and has always been very, very strong. And so I thank you for actually having this group of witnesses. I look forward to listening to them, but I just want everybody to understand that those statements by the Secretary General were not seen here in a positive way, and I think that I would assume that in Morocco, they were received in a very negative way, but I think it's important to understand that they were also received that way here in the United States Congress. And thank you for this opportunity. I look forward to listening to our witnesses today.
Thank you so much, Congressman Diaz-Balart. Congressman Albi Osiris of New Jersey, who also serves on the Foreign Relations Committee with me.
I'll be brief. I want to make sure I hear part of what you have to say. I have other things, but I couldn't agree more with what the chair lady has said. So we are all very supportive of this information meeting that we're having here, and we're certainly going to work together to see what we can do. I mean, you're in a hotbed over there, what's going on over there now, and on all fronts. So we have to be very supportive.
Thank you.
You're so correct, Congressman Osiris. They're in a very difficult neighborhood, and yet they remain a solid United States ally. Why would we want to undo that relationship? It makes no sense. So I'd like to introduce our wonderful panelists today. First, we'd like to welcome Ambassador Mark Ginsburg. Ambassador Ginsburg previously advised President Clinton on Middle East policy, and he served as the U.S. ambassador to Morocco from 1994 to 98, becoming the first American of Jewish heritage to be appointed ambassador to an Arab nation. He has continued to work on Middle East and North Africa issues, and we're pleased to welcome him here today. Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. And next, we welcome Ambassador Michael Uzuri. Thank you so much. Ambassador Uzuri served as ambassador to Morocco from 1988 to 92. Prior to this, he was Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Near Eastern and South Asian Affairs and as Chief of Staff to Congressman Carol Campbell. Welcome, Ambassador. We're also pleased to welcome Lester Munson. Les is the former staff director of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. He worked in Congress and the administration in key policy roles for over 25 years. He worked on the committee that Ted Deutsch and I and Albi Osiris serve on, only back when it was called House International Relations, and it's a pleasure to have Les back on this side of the Capitol. And finally, we're pleased to welcome Nizar Baraka. Mr. Baraka is a Moroccan politician, economist, and current president of the Economic, Social, and Environmental Council of Morocco. Previously, Mr. Baraka served as Minister of the Economy and Finance from 2012 to 2013, and as Minister Delegate of Economic and General Affairs from 2007 to 2012. What a distinguished panel of witnesses. Thank you so much. We welcome all of you, and we're eager to hear from what you have to say.
Perhaps I can start, and I know we only have a few minutes here for each of us, by laying the groundwork of why where you are today has an important foundation in the history of this evolving situation. As you said, Madam Chairman, I served as ambassador from 1994 to 98. And during my ambassadorship, I devoted far more time than I ever thought I would to the efforts to reformulate U.S. policy in the region, including pursuing new policy initiatives to reflect new security threats in North Africa, the growing enmity between Algeria and Morocco, Algeria's horrific civil war, which was being waged at that point, and the nascent emergence of Islamic terrorism sparked by events in Algeria. In what subsequently became the policy blueprint for successive U.S. administrations, as well as Special UN Envoy Secretary Baker, I commenced with the full approval of Secretary of State Christopher, a 2-year secret diplomatic initiative to explore the feasibility of granting autonomy under Moroccan sovereignty for the Western Sahara. We decided at the State Department this was the best course for all parties, given the urgent need to resolve the humanitarian plight of the Sahrawi people, as well as to reflect the changing realities in North Africa. I received a green light also from King Hassan, with whom I met frequently, who expressed to me his willingness to consider recommendations from the United States, how a grant of limited sovereignty to the region's inhabitants could be accomplished in order to lay the groundwork for a peaceful resolution of the situation of the Western Sahara. We conducted secret talks in Rabat, Algiers, and Tindouf with the Polisario leadership. But after almost 2 years of intense exploratory diplomacy, it became increasingly evident to me that Algeria and the Polisario were unwilling to consider anything less than full independence. I concluded that Algeria's motives lay less with resolving differences with Morocco and serving as a party willing to resolve the conflict than with leveraging the conflict as a means to undermine and weaken our ally Morocco. Nevertheless, both King Hassan and subsequently King Mohammed embraced the concept which subsequently became the formula pursued by Special Envoy Baker: limited sovereignty for the territory under a Moroccan flag that granted transparent and enforceable civil liberties and new political rights to the Sahrawi people. And may I point out, Madam Chairwoman and members of the committee, that my colleague Ed Gabriel, Ambassador Gabriel, who's in the audience, played an essential role in helping to formulate this important evolution of U.S. foreign policy that today indeed should be embraced not just by Algeria, not just by the Polisario, but also by the United Nations objectively. I departed Rabat in 1998 with full knowledge and realization that the Moroccan government was willing to pursue new formulas to break the stalemate, to lay the groundwork for limited self-determination for the territory's inhabitants. I also had no illusions that despite the unprecedented secret diplomacy conducted by myself and by my colleagues, that neither Algeria or Polisario would consider reasonable, imaginative, as well as objective offers from the Moroccan government. It seems to me, Madam Chairman, as someone who has been deeply involved with the United Nations, as well as working with its organizational efforts in the Western Sahara, that the Secretary General's comments come at the worst possible time, at a moment when Morocco deserves to have the full, unbridled support of the United States in helping to resolve this conflict. Morocco deserves and has earned the full support of the United States government. It is a very, as you said, trustworthy Arab ally that Americans are fortunate to have at a time of a turbulent and dangerous time in North Africa. Limited sovereignty for the inhabitants of the territory constitute a just, viable, and expeditious resolution, particularly at a time right now when someone like me spends so much of my time trying to stop the recruitment of ISIS operatives from Tunisia, Algeria, Libya, and Morocco. We need the strong support of the Moroccan government more than ever, and more importantly, may I say, we need the support of the Algerian government to cooperate more fully with the United States in helping to resolve this conflict. Thank you very much, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much, and totally agree with what you say. We need to bring Morocco closer to us because they are fighting the good fight. And we're so pleased and honored to be joined by a distinguished member of the Foreign Affairs Committee who has great credibility on the international scene, Gregory Meeks. And Gregory, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know we have so many commitments. So if you had some words about Morocco and what a great partnership and a strong partnership we have with our great ally and what we can do to strengthen that, we would love to hear from you at this time.
Well, Madam Chair, what I will say is that Morocco has been a strong ally of the United States of America. I've had the pleasure to go and visit and meet and speak, and in the region, it is one of the countries that are absolutely important, and our relationship is important. I appreciate, I look forward to a continuing relationship, and to know that members of the United States Congress, and I believe also, there's certain things that divide us. Well, as you can see here, in a bipartisan way, we're all together and appreciate the alliance we have with the country of Morocco.
Thank you so much, Congressman Meeks. Right as always. Ambassador Ussery, as I remind our audience, was ambassador from 88 to 92. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and members of the committee. I'm Michael Ussery, and it's a pleasure to be here. And I'll submit my full statement for the record.
Without objection. In
the sake of time, but I really appreciate the opportunity to come here and speak on the U.S.-Morocco relationship, and particularly on the Western Sahara issue at this time. One of the oldest, most contentious issues on the planet. I think it's clear, as you've said, with Morocco being such a great friend and ally, it's time for us to speak up and stand side by side with Morocco on the Western Sahara issue, to see that the Western Sahara becomes part of internationally recognized Moroccan sovereignty, and that the key issue of the autonomy be settled, and we move forward on this issue. On a personal note, I've been down to the Sahara 3 times in the past 5 years, looking at the issue of refugees coming back from Algeria to the Western Sahara, on commercial issues, on education. I've also had the great opportunity to be down there during local elections and see a vibrant democratic campaign process going on down in the Sahara. I've also driven through the Sahara from top to bottom. Les says he got the helicopter rides, but anyway, so we offer 2 different viewpoints. It is really incredibly tough land down there, and it's amazing what the Moroccans have done with the Sahara region, just in particularly the last 15 years. They've spent the equivalent of billions of dollars out of their budgets developing ports, infrastructure, incredible large developments in the area of housing and secondary and primary education, in making investment areas and industrial parks for new factories which are down there. The agriculture business down there is actually booming, and tomatoes are going in large quantities to Europe all the time, big energy projects down there. So it's really remarkable what's happened in the field of development by Morocco. My first time working on the Western Sahara, hard to say this now, is 31 years ago in 1985, when I was a Reagan appointee at the State Department. And at that time, we were approaching the 10th year of the Western Sahara conflict, and Secretary Schultz called for a policy review. Of course, we'd been helping Morocco on the military side and other kind of development projects around the country, and we continued to help support the Moroccan military during periods of constant attacks by the Polisario Front. But the Secretary said we've got to review the policy, and we went forward with the idea of trying to get a ceasefire in place. And as that ceasefire didn't actually happen until 1991, and then all the diplomatic efforts that Ambassador Ginsburg's already addressed. But in 1986, as we finished the review, I remember Secretary Schultz's comments of, we've got to get into high gear. This has been going on too long. So, but now here we sit today, and following the comments of the UN Secretary General on occupation and referendums, now we're probably farther away from a solution than we've been in a long time. But I would just say that it's time for us to think with real politics, with reality. There's never going to be an independent Saharan state, so let's be out front about that. Let's make that very clear. Let's continue to work on the proposal the Moroccans have done on autonomy. And I would just say to everybody who, whether they're new to the issue, not you here, but all the others out there in the public and around the world, it's hard to imagine the idea of an independent, new, frail Saharan state over 100,000 square miles, long stretch of the Atlantic, ports, as the ambassador and others are going to be saying today, in an area where we've had, where Al Qaeda in the Maghreb, ISIS. It looks like if we tried to say, how could we create another Libya? Where would we put it? Somebody might say, well, let's have an independent Saharan state right there, right in the Western Sahara. And I think there are a lot of other issues that actually aren't discussed about the situation in the Sahara. There's been a lot of foreign investment out there. There's U.S. investment that needs to be protected down in the Sahara. There's European investment in oil concessions and energy projects and other types of development. I'm not sure that a new state wouldn't just be ripe for nationalization. Nobody's talking about how to protect those interests except to have it under Morocco, continue to be under Morocco and under Moroccan sovereignty. So I hope we get realistic. We continue to speak out and support our friends Morocco, but also because it's in our interest. We just can't have that part of the world further destabilized, and that region just to be an open invitation for a jihadist, and certainly a new weak Polisario government wouldn't have the funding or the ability to block access through all kinds of porous borders, through the ports, et cetera. So one thing I would say that I think we could do here and where Congress could help in a very important way would be if we open up Title III programs for activity in the Western Sahara. We keep encouraging XM and OPIC and others to allow U.S. investment in those areas with our U.S. government support. So anyway, thank you so much, Madam Chairman.
Well, thank you. You're right. It's a bad idea whose time has not come and will never come. Another failed state is what we would be creating. Lester Munson, thank you. Look forward to hearing you, Lester.
Madam Chairman, Congressman, thank you for the opportunity to participate in this briefing on U.S.-Moroccan relations. As a former staff member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, it's truly an honor to be here in this capacity. When I was professional staff member handling both sub-Saharan Africa and North Africa issues for then Chairman Ben Gilman, I had the opportunity to travel to Morocco and Western Sahara on several occasions and benefited from a firsthand view of many of the issues that are being discussed today. I saw both sides of the berm. I reviewed the operations of the United Nations in Western Sahara and toured the refugee camps run by the Polisario in Algeria. During that time, I also worked closely with Ambassador Ginsburg on the repatriation of hundreds of Moroccan prisoners of war who had been held by the Polisario Front for many years. Let me just say that during this time, I developed great affection for the people of Western Sahara, and I only wish the very best for them that our world has to offer. Having said that, I think it's important that we speak plainly and with common sense about the best outcome for the people and territory of Western Sahara, and frankly, what is in the national security interests of the United States. It is most certainly not for Western Sahara to become an independent nation. I hope we've learned a lesson. Generally speaking, creating new nations doesn't solve problems so much as create new ones. In the past quarter century, we've seen two new nations created in Africa, Eritrea and South Sudan. Neither has thrived. In fact, both have arguably turned out poorly. Since its founding in 1993, Eritrea has launched wars against each of its neighbors. Since its creation in 2011, South Sudan has headed straight into civil war and humanitarian catastrophe. This is not to say that new sovereignties shouldn't be considered when they can bring stability to chaos, such as the Kurds in Syria and Iraq, or in the case of Somaliland. Madam Chairman, I should note here that for disclosure purposes, my firm works for the Kurdistan Regional Government in Iraq.
Duly noted.
Thank you. But for the possibility of a new nation in Sahara, we should view that as a cause of concern. The region is a hotbed of terrorism, as my fellow witnesses have already noted. Both al-Qaeda and the Islamic State are operating there directly or through surrogate groups. A new independent nation in Western Sahara with no demonstrated governmental capabilities, a tiny population in a large territory, and split by tribal and other differences would be a magnet for these terrorist groups. For many years now, the United Nations has been working to keep the peace and promoting a referendum on the future of the territory. But after much effort, there is no consensus on who could vote. Morocco has put forward, at the urging of several nations, including the United States, a plan for an autonomous region in Western Sahara, but under the ultimate sovereignty of Morocco. The Polisario has refused to consider this plan and threatened a return to violence. The issue was brought forward recently, as we have already noted, when the UN Secretary General made a reference to Western Sahara being occupied by Moroccan forces. This has prompted massive demonstrations. As many as 3 million people have marched in the streets of Morocco. This controversy, though, provides an opportunity for the international community to take the sensible step of communicating to both the Polisario and Algeria that independence for Western Sahara is not a viable option, and that they should accept Morocco's offer of autonomy or make a reasonable counteroffer. This outcome, genuine local autonomy for the people of Western Sahara, is a reasonable compromise that accounts for most of the interests of all parties. To be blunt, an independent Western Sahara would be a disaster, much like Eritrea and South Sudan have become. If you look to the east of Morocco, the Horn of Africa is now filled with turmoil, much of it caused by these two new nations, some of it spilling over into the Arabian Peninsula, where the U.S. has vast strategic interests. Eritrea, which once supported the Houthi rebels in Yemen, is now on the side of the coalition working to thwart them. In South Sudan, the world's newest nation, tens of thousands have been killed in a brutal civil war, and 2 million people have been driven from their homes. It is Syria on the Nile, the world's latest failed state. There is no reason to visit this chaos on Morocco or the Sahara region. Morocco, Madam Chairman, as you noted, was the first nation to recognize the United States in 1777. It is one of our oldest and closest friends. It's a staunch ally of the United States in the war on terrorism and during the Cold War. Let me just close by noting that both President Clinton and President George W. Bush said regarding Western Sahara, genuine autonomy under Moroccan sovereignty is the only feasible solution. The Obama administration should use this current controversy to make this solution a reality. Thank you.
That's true. Absolutely. Timing is everything. Thank you, Lester. And now we're so pleased to hear from Nizar Baraka, who is right there on the front lines coming from Morocco. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Honorable Congressmen, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank you for this opportunity on behalf of the Economic, Social and Environmental Council of Morocco, which is a constitutional body independent from the government, which represent the organized civil society, the Council embracing NGOs, unions, employers. During the last 15 years, Morocco engaged major reforms that significantly transformed my country. During this fairly short time, Morocco was able to achieve all millennial development goals by reducing within 10 years poverty from 15% to 4% through a dedicated national initiative for human development, by raising by 50% the average income per capita, by generalizing primary education and reducing the illiteracy from 54% to 32%, by providing access to drinking water to 95% of the rural population, and to electricity to 99% of the rural population. On a national level, thanks to the leadership of His Majesty the King, our new constitution, adopted in July 2011, translates Morocco's commitment to promote peace and security, Morocco's commitment to ensure its citizens full access to their fundamental rights, Morocco's commitment to establish a new generation of human rights, promoting access to healthcare and social protection, access to education and university, access to employment, and the right to a healthy environment. And Morocco's commitment to ensure an inclusive and sustainable development, and Morocco's commitment to permanently settle democracy at the national, regional, and local level. The paradigm shift brought by the 2011 Constitution is that the priority now is the promotion of citizenship. The citizen and his rights are now at the center of all public policies. To support this commitment, it was necessary to bring public decision closer to the citizens, and this was made possible through advanced regionalization. The new regionalization in Morocco, which is now operational, consists in a large transfer of authority and budget to directly elected regional councils. These councils are responsible for planning and deploying their own economic, social, and environmental development strategy. These strategies are supported by the government through contractual agreements with the regions, each council electing a president who chairs the execution agency in charge of implementing the regional development plans. The institutional setup of this advanced regionalization was completed last September with the election of the regional council with the participation rate of around 54%. And in November, the elected president of the three regions of the Sahara, Laayoune Saqiya al-Hamra, Dakhla Wad Dahab, and Gelmim Wad Noun, signed with the government during a ceremony chaired by His Majesty the King in Laayoune several contracts representing $7 billion of investment aiming within the next 10 years to double the GDP per inhabitant in this region, to create 120,000 new jobs, dividing the unemployment rate by 2, to improve the climate for investment through the construction of 630 miles, 4 lines expressway connecting Agadir to Dakhla, and the construction of the Dakhla Atlantic port that will reinforce the connectivity and the attractiveness of the region, to develop university and vocational training centers to address the talent needs of the development plans, and to promote the Hassani culture and preserve the environment. Moreover, the natural resources profits will go to a special fund for social and economic development in the Sahara, aiming to improve local population living conditions, especially youth and women. So through their elected representative, the population of the Moroccan Sahara choose to take full and entire responsibility in building a better future for their children without being hostage of the long-lasting UN process. These development plans are the result of broad consultation with the local population and started to be implemented under the leadership of their newly elected representative. The dynamics of this reform will foster the implementation of the autonomy plan proposed by Morocco. Ladies and gentlemen, to conclude my brief, the overwhelming majority of Sahrawi took responsibility for building in their regions, under the Moroccan sovereignty, a future of hope, of dignity, and well-being for the local population. Destabilizing this virtuous process means gambling with their future and with the security of the region, instead of supporting the development of a pole of stability in a region weakened by continuous terrorist threats. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. And as you point out, how many countries in the region provide this positive economic climate that will bring in investment, that will create new jobs in a country who really worries about their economic future and wants to provide good paying jobs and a solid education for future generations. Thank you so much to all of our witnesses. I will turn to my good friends, Mr. Diaz-Balart and Mr. Sears, for any concluding remarks they might like to make.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. First, if I may thank you for bringing this large and bipartisan group together, this distinguished group of witnesses who come again from two ambassadors from different administrations and a former staffer. And if he worked for you, then you'd still be working for her. You know, once you so you're lucky that you were not there when she was chairman of the committee. And again, so thank you for bringing us all together. Just important to note. Look, the last time I was in Morocco, I had and it was a trip that was headed by the chairman of the Appropriations Committee. Mr. Rogers, Chairman Rogers, and we had the ability to tour Morocco, but also to meet with members of parliament, elected members of parliament from different parties, and to think that that is happening in that part of the world, people are astonished. That is normal in Morocco. Morocco has made incredible progress on the economic front, on the political front, and so I guess it should not surprise us that the Secretary General will make statements that are not only frankly offensive and irresponsible, but also reckless and dangerous. But I wish it was only with Morocco that he has done that. Unfortunately, he has a track record. It should not surprise us, but it still does not make it less offensive. But it's important to note, again, the strong, very strong support. I know of your relationship, Madam Chairwoman, with the Appropriations Committee on issues dealing with Morocco, and I think we can expect more shows of concrete support to this relationship. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you, Mr. Diaz-Balart. Mr. Sears.
Well, I was unfortunate about the remarks. I also visited Morocco and Tunisia about three years ago. We went with Senator Keene from Virginia, and we met with the elected officials, and we went with everyone. And certainly I was very impressed in the direction that you're going. But most impressive to me was the fact that you're surrounded by nothing but a mess. And you're surviving, and you're moving forward. So to me, that was the most impressive part of my trip. And, you know, you have my full support, and the chairman knows it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sears, and thank you for excellent panelists. And I hope that the people and the government of Morocco know that those misguided statements of Secretary General Ban Ki-moon are not representative of the U.S. position, nor the position of many of those countries that he purports to represent. Thank you very much. And with that, we have adjourned.
Thank you. Madam Chairman, may I submit my statement for the record?
Yes, without objection, your written statements will be made a part of the record. Thank you.